Chapter 71. Come on, give me a smile. Of course, Professor. Xiaoji wasn't the least bit worried that the other students would be able to learn this spell. After all, performing such a form of human transfiguration required an immense amount of magical power. Only a wizard of Professor Dumbledore's caliber, and one with a completely intact soul at that, stood any chance of mastering it. Thus, some random ordinary wizard definitely wouldn't manage it. And there weren't many other wizards capable of success either. Ultimately, this was merely a novel concept in theory. Much like the upcoming Wolfsbane potion, everyone knew it allowed werewolves to retain their sanity during full moons, yet no werewolf could actually afford it. Professor Dumbledore understood this as well, though he attributed Xiaoji's immense magical power to his controllable obscurus. As Xiaoji departed, Dumbledore spoke to him with evident satisfaction. I'm truly glad, Xiaoji, that you've devoted your efforts not to studying dark magic, but to advancing your mastery of transfiguration. 997. Xiaoji murmured to himself on his way out of the headmaster's office, frowning thoughtfully. Why on earth would anyone need to study dark magic? Truth was, he'd never bothered with it at all. No matter how complex or arcane a dark spell might be, he grasped it instantly upon seeing it just once. His proficiency in dark magic? A perfect 9 out of 10. Later that afternoon, the long-awaited flying class finally commenced. The training grounds were a grassy expanse bordering the Forbidden Forest. Madame Hooch, the flying instructor, instructed everyone to stand beside their respective brooms. Extend your right hand and place it atop the broomstick, she called out. Then say, up. Up, the students shouted in unison. All except Xiaoji. He hadn't even spoken yet his broom had already trembled, thrusting its handle firmly into his grip, as though terrified of delaying even a moment and provoking Xiaoji's displeasure. Among the others, Cassandra and Harry had barely uttered the command when their brooms shot upward. Hermione's broom, however, merely rolled across the ground twice before utterly ignoring her, much to her growing panic. Neville Longbottom's broom, meanwhile, lay motionless on the grass, as though the boys standing beside it were utterly magicless. Eventually, after correcting several students' improper techniques, Madame Hooch returned before them all. Upon my whistle, you'll kick your legs forcefully to lift off the ground. Make sure you put real effort into it. Yet Neville, overwhelmed by nervousness, had already shot skyward before she even blew. Right now, he resembled a firework, blasting straight upward at breakneck speed. Come back down, boy. Madame Hooch cried in alarm. Should Neville plummet from such heights, he'd almost certainly perish outright. Even magic wouldn't stand a chance of saving him. Terrified, Neville realized he was rapidly ascending higher and higher. Then his grip slipped. He lost hold of his broom and began tumbling head over heels through the air. The crowd erupted in screams, horrified as they watched Neville roll downward like a meteor. Xiaoji swiftly drew his wand, aiming it precisely at Neville's plummeting form. Reducto gravitatum. Instantly, Neville's rapid descent slowed dramatically. Now, he descended gently like a leaf, finally landing softly at a height of roughly 3 meters above the ground.
Oh,
my dear boy, thank goodness for your levitation charm. Madame Hooch exclaimed, rushing over to check on Neville. The students stood awestruck at Xiaoji's feet. Hitting a swiftly falling target with a spell was no easy task. Moreover, while everyone else stood frozen in shock, only Xiaoji reacted swiftly enough to cast levitation. His unflappable composure earned him immense admiration. Cassandra gazed at him with radiant pride, as though she herself had just performed the spell. Could you possibly teach me that spell? Hermione whispered, equally nervous. She'd been dreading the prospect of tumbling off her broom too. Learning it might at least afford her some self-protection. Of course, Xiaoji agreed readily, promptly demonstrating and explaining it to the group. Whether they'd actually managed to cast it was another matter entirely, but at least it'd bolster their confidence. After all, Neville's near fall had deeply shaken them all. Thanks to the levitation charm, Neville emerged unscathed, though undeniably rattled. Madame Hooch ultimately decided to send him to Madame Pomfrey's infirmary for observation. Before departing, she ordered everyone to return their brooms to the ground. No one was permitted to fly until her return. Violators, she warned, would face expulsion. Yet such threats held zero weight in Draco Malfoy's eyes. He began jeering loudly at Neville. See that face? That big, clumsy oaf. Gryffindor and Slytherin students rarely got along, so the Slytherin lot joined in Draco's mockery. Draco then picked up the remembrall Neville had dropped, taunting Harry next. I'm thinking of placing this somewhere only Longbottom could reach, say, atop a tree? With that, he mounted his broom and shot skyward. Give it back. Harry roared, equally indignant. He followed suit, leaping onto his broom and kicking off the ground. Harry, wait. Don't forget Madame Hooch's orders. You'll be expelled. Hermione cried, attempting to halt him. Harry ignored her, eyes blazing with fury as he zeroed in on Draco. Hand it over, or I'll knock you off your broom. No Crabbe or Goyle's here to save you now. Draco, now genuinely panicked, feared Harry'd actually send him plummeting to his doom. Catch it if you can, he yelled, hurling the remembrall high into the air before attempting a rapid descent. Harry shot forward in pursuit. But mid-descent, Draco spotted someone blocking his path, Xiaji, gliding toward him on a broom. This was Xiaji's first time riding one, yet he marveled to find it utterly egg-free. Some spell on the broom's shaft evidently shielded him. What do you want? Draco demanded, wary. Xiaji had thrashed him early in the term, and even his own father had warned him to steer clear. Nothing much. I merely wish to witness how the noble young Malfoy looks mid-free fall. Draco gasped in shock, scrambling to circle past Xiaji and reach the ground. Too late. Xiaji shot upward in a flash. Then Draco felt his collar seized. Suddenly weightless, he felt himself ripped from his broom. Xiaji, riding his broom, had single-handedly lifted Draco off his own. Ah! Draco dangled helplessly, feet dangling far from the earth. Seems your face isn't quite so handsome after all. You dared mock Neville. This expression's utterly hideous. Now, give me a smile. With that, Xiaji released him. Draco froze. Had he truly let go? How dare he? Aya! Desperate, Draco flailed wildly, now tumbling freely through the air. Chapter 72. Detention? Off to the Forbidden Forest? Yi. Whoa. Everyone on the ground was utterly stunned by Xiaji's actions. How could Xiaji be so impulsive? If Draco had died from that fall, he'd have ended up in Azkaban. Hermione exclaimed in horror. Cassandra Vole calmly replied, Relax, Hermione. When have you ever seen him suffer any real consequences? He probably just wanted to scare Draco a bit. Awesome. Ron was ecstatic. Nothing could bring him more joy than seeing Draco in a predicament. Xiaji dove downward, swiftly catching up to the falling Draco. He grabbed him by the legs and then ascended back into the sky, holding him upside down. After making another loop around, he finally returned to the ground. As soon as Draco landed, he collapsed, utterly unable to stand. I must tell my father. Sniffle. He realized his pants had become completely wet. Harry Potter. Xiaji. How dare you? Xiaji jumped in fright. Harry turned deathly pale. Despair washed over Harry. He was doomed. He'd soon be packing his bags and expelled from school. Professor McGonagall's eyes blazed with fury. She first glared at Harry. In all my years at Hogwarts, I've never seen Potter. How dare you? You could have broken your neck. Then she turned to Xiaji. And you, Xiaji, you disappoint me greatly. How dare you bully a fellow student like that? He was mocking Neville, Professor. I simply couldn't hold back. Silence, both of you. Follow me. Professor McGonagall spun around furiously and strode toward the castle. Xiaji and Harry hurried after her. Upon entering the castle, she turned to Xiaji. You, go wait in my office. Potter, you come with me. Xiaji scratched his head. It was just a harmless little ride on a falling tower ride, something even Muggle amusement parks offered. Well, maybe it had been a bit overkill. Reluctantly, he made his way to her office to wait. He entered, head hanging low, pulled over a small stool and sat down, quietly awaiting her return. At this moment, she was probably speaking with Wood, discussing Harry's recruitment into Gryffindor's Quidditch team. After quite some time, Professor McGonagall stormed back into her office. Xiaji quickly stood up. "Professor, I know I was wrong. I won't dare do it again." She glared at him, her anger still simmering. "This morning, I was genuinely impressed by your talent, Xiaji. I refuse to let someone with such promise end up in Azkaban." She continued scolding him. "True, Draco deserved some consequences, but you shouldn't have resorted to such methods." She lectured him at length, though Xiaji knew she only worried that his impulsiveness might ruin his future. It was out of care, so he listened silently. "I have no choice but to assign you detention," she concluded, having exhausted her reprimands. "You may go now. I'll inform you later of the specifics." When Xiaji returned to the common room, Cassandra Vole was seated in an armchair, reading. She glanced up upon seeing him. "So? Did she actually make you pack your bags and go home?" "Seems she still cares enough not to do that," Xiaji replied, plopping down beside her. "But detention's unavoidable. Though it seems she forgot to deduct points from me." Hermione approached them. "You really shouldn't be so impulsive, Xiaji." Her lips were pressed tightly together, much like Professor McGonagall's. "Relax, Hermione. I see a younger version of Professor McGonagall in you." Hermione glared at him indignantly. "All you boys are the same, completely reckless." Just now, Harry actually agreed to Draco's challenge for a duel tonight. Good heavens. No matter how much I pleaded, they wouldn't listen. Xiaji was genuinely surprised. He hadn't expected Draco to still dare provoke Harry after nearly peeing his pants from fear. "Well, Hermione, I bet you'll be joining them tonight anyway." "Me? Breaking rules and sneaking out at night? Absolutely not." She held her head high proudly. "I'll definitely stop them, rather than joining them in their escapades." With that, she stormed off, fuming. Xiaji shrugged. "Come now, how can Gryffindor ever resist sneaking out at night?" "So, you've done it before?" Cassandra spoke slowly, deliberately enunciating each word. "Of course. The very first night." Xiaji suddenly fell silent. "You've seemed listless each day this past week. So, you've been sneaking out every night?" Her gaze turned dangerous. "And you didn't even invite me." I just remembered I left my dormitory's chicken soup simmering." "Xiaji, stop right there." Like a fierce lioness, Cassandra lunged at him. The next morning, Xiaji awoke feeling refreshed and headed to the common room. Harry and Ron rushed over, eager to share their own adventures. They'd encountered a three-headed dog. Xiaji understood. After challenging them to a duel, Draco promptly betrayed them to Filch. In fleeing, they'd unwittingly stumbled into the room where Fluffy resided. Harry and Ron vied to tell him that the massive dog must have been guarding the very package Xiaji had taken out earlier. Yet Xiaji had zero interest in discovering what lay inside it. "Were you trying to steal this item belonging to Professor Dumbledore?" he asked. "Of course not. Why would we steal it?" Harry looked utterly bewildered. "If you had no intention of stealing it, why were you so curious about it?" Xiaji shrugged. He simply couldn't fathom such curiosity. Had it been him, he wouldn't have cared at all. After washing up, Xiaji entered the Great Hall for breakfast. From afar, Cassandra spotted him, scoffed, and walked away. Well, looks like he'd be facing her wrath for several days. Just as he sat down, Hermione appeared beside him, clutching a massive stack of books. She slammed them onto the table, clearly still fuming from Harry and Ron's antics. "I bet you sneaked out with them last night," Xiaji drawled, sipping his porridge. I only went because when I tried returning, Madame Pomfrey wasn't in her portrait. I had no other choice." "Relax, Hermione. You should be grateful you joined them." She stared at him, stunned. "I'd wager that without you, those idiots would have been caught by Filch. You single-handedly saved Gryffindor from point deductions." Upon hearing this, Hermione's tense expression finally softened. Suddenly, an older student handed him a note. His detention had been confirmed. Saturday night at 9, He'd accompany Hagrid into the Forbidden Forest. The Forbidden Forest? Yi. Xiaji instantly grew excited. He'd long wanted to explore it, only hadn't gotten the chance before, busy retrieving forbidden books. Hermione snatched the note from him, panicked. How could they send you there? It's far too dangerous. Chapter 73. Xiaji, the stars are unusually bright tonight. Centaur? Going to the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid was widely regarded as the scariest form of detention. Rumors claimed the forest was teeming with all sorts of terrifying creatures, werewolves among others. But none of that frightened Xiaji at all. Werewolves, in particular, held no fear for him. He had personally killed a transformed werewolf, the strongest of them at that. As for the countless other werewolves he'd slain before they even transformed, he hadn't bothered to count them. It's all right, Hermione. Don't worry. You know how capable I am, and Hagrid's with me too. Werewolves? Hagrid could punch one to death without breaking a sweat. Xiaji tried to reassure Hermione. Otherwise, she'd probably rush off to ask a professor to assign him different attention. That would be disastrous. He certainly didn't want to spend the entire night scrubbing toilets or polishing trophies. Harry felt somewhat embarrassed. Both he and Xiaji had broken rules, yet Harry had made the Quidditch team while Xiaji faced detention. At precisely 9 o'clock on Saturday evening, Xiaji arrived in the entrance hall, where he spotted Filch. "Follow me," Filch said, holding up an oil lamp as he led Xiaji out through the castle gates. Humph. It's a shame they abolished those old-fashioned punishments, tying up your wrists and leaving you hanging for days. I still keep those chains in my office. I even oil them from time to time. Who knows? They might come in handy someday. Filch cast a malicious glance at Xiaji, clearly anticipating his panic. But Xiaji remained utterly unfazed. Humph. Perhaps you've no idea how terrifying the Forbidden Forest truly is. There are werewolves, vampires. I've killed more than one werewolf in the forests of Albania, Xiaji interjected softly. Filch turned around and saw Xiaji's hollow, eerie eyes, instantly sending shivers down his spine. He trembled in fear, suddenly viewing that small figure behind him as nothing short of a demon. Speechless, he hurried away, too terrified to say another word. Is that you, Filch? Hagrid's voice rang out from afar. An oil lamp appeared in the distance, followed by a towering figure emerging from the darkness. I've been waiting for you, Filch. At Hagrid's sight, Filch turned tail and fled, not daring to utter another word to Xiaji. He'd been utterly terrified by Xiaji's gaze. Oh, Xiaji. That old fool Filch didn't give you any trouble, did he? I doubt he's capable of that, Xiaji replied cheerfully. I figured as much. Hagrid chuckled. Say, you've never visited my hut, have you? I'll definitely come by next time, Xiaji promised. By the way, Hagrid, what exactly are we doing tonight? Well, unicorns in the forest have been under attack. Hagrid exclaimed indignantly. It doesn't seem to be the work of ordinary beasts. They simply lack the power to harm such graceful creatures. I found one dead just yesterday, Hagrid continued gravely. I've no idea what could have done this. Xiaji helped Hagrid lead his hound, Fong. Hagrid, did that dead unicorn still have its horn and tail intact? Yes, both remained intact. It bled out to death. Then it's clear, Hagrid. Something's draining unicorn blood to sustain itself. Xiaji spoke calmly. Only one person at Hogwarts would do such a thing. Yet this time, he'd started hunting unicorns far earlier than in the original timeline, likely due to his own use of fiendfire. Regardless, tonight he'd finally confront that individual. Xiaji gripped his wand tightly. Hagrid grabbed his crossbow, and together they entered the Forbidden Forest. Following some past injustice, Hagrid had been barred from using magic. We must stay cautious. We've no idea whether this unicorn killer is human or beast. I'd wager it's human. No beast could capture a unicorn. They wield immense magical power. If it's human, then the moment their lips touch unicorn blood, they're cursed to death. Hagrid growled. Suddenly, Hagrid halted, spotting glittering silver droplets on the ground. Look, that's unicorn blood. Another one's been injured. He clenched his fists in rage. Siaji cast a shield charm over both himself and Hagrid, with his magical reserves, maintaining it wouldn't be difficult. Following the blood trail, they searched for the injured unicorn, hoping to save it before it perished. Then, both Hagrid and Siaji ducked behind a massive tree, crossbow and wands aimed at a thicket. "Show yourself, or I fire." Whoosh! A centaur emerged from the foliage. This was Siaji's first real encounter with one. Human torso above the waist, rich brown horse body below. Hagrid lowered his crossbow. "Ah, it's you. Planning to shoot me, Hagrid?" The centaur's voice was deep and melodic, yet tinged with sorrow. "Of course not. You know unicorns have been attacked lately. This blood trail suggests another's been harmed. We must stay vigilant. Allow me to introduce you. This is Siaji, a Hogwarts student. And this is Ronan, a centaur." "Greetings. Are you a student from the castle?" "Yes," Siaji replied. "I've learned much here." "That's good." Ronan gazed skyward. "Tonight, Mars shines brightly." Siaji followed his gaze. "Indeed. Yet innocents always suffer first. Year after year, it's always been this way." Ronan fell silent. Siaji stared blankly at the heavens. "Mars is exceptionally luminous tonight. The forest hides countless secrets, Hagrid." Ronan felt utterly speechless. It seemed Siaji had anticipated every thought he'd intended to voice. Hagrid stared at Siaji in stunned silence. Soon, they left the dazed centaur behind, venturing deeper into the woods. "If I hadn't known you're a wizard, I'd have thought you a centaur yourself," Hagrid sighed. Now, the blood trail grew thicker. They must be nearing the injured unicorn. Suddenly, a rustling sound echoed from afar, like robes dragging through foliage. Hagrid raised his crossbow alongside Siaji, parting the undergrowth. There, they saw a beautiful creature sprawled on the ground, while a robed figure bent over it, drinking its blood. Siaji raised his wand instantly. A sinister crimson beam shot forth, aimed straight at the robed individual. Chapter 74. Siaji and Voldemort's First Showdown. This was a combined spell utilizing soul magic, fiend fire, and the stunning spell. Of course, the purpose of the stunning spell was merely to add color to this overall spell. After all, it wouldn't be appropriate to directly use dark magic right in front of Hagrid. The black-robed wizard quickly darted to the side. The spell radiating eerie red light grazed his scalp before striking a large tree 5 meters away. Boom! With a thunderous crash, the tree instantly turned to ashes. Siaji had full control over the range of his fiend fire, so no uncontrolled flames spread after the tree was destroyed. Avada Kedavra! The black-robed wizard swiftly retaliated with a killing curse. "Hagrid, get down." Siaji shoved Hagrid behind a tree. Thanks to Siaji's 10-point strength stat, it was even possible to move someone as massive as a half-giant like Hagrid. Just as Hagrid was out of harm's way, the killing curse whizzed past his nose. Hagrid broke out in cold sweat from sheer terror. Siaji waved his wand. Leaves on the ground swirled into the air, rapidly transforming into countless sharp blades. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless blades hurtled toward the black-robed wizard. Stunned by the sheer volume of blades, the wizard seemed frozen in place, utterly unable to dodge. Just as the blades were about to pin him down, he suddenly dissolved into a cloud of black mist, evading all attacks and reappearing a few meters away. The countless blades impaled the ground instead, failing to hit their target. Siaji realized this was Voldemort assuming direct control. This time, however, Voldemort didn't flee using Quirrell's body. He clearly intended to engage Siaji in combat. Facing each other, Siaji and Voldemort simultaneously raised their wands. Soul Rend. Avada Kedavra. Spotting the purple magical projectile approaching him, Voldemort felt an ominous premonition. This spell seemed impossible to block. He could only dodge it. Meanwhile, a stone in front of Siaji levitated, forming a circular shield that effortlessly deflected the killing curse. "Hagrid, run and get help. I'll hold him off," Siaji shouted, his soul magic spell never ceasing. Voldemort dodged the purple projectiles. Upon striking trees or ground, they lost all effect, behaving like harmless purple rays. Yet Voldemort sensed a strange magical energy within them capable of severely damaging his soul. Unbeknownst to him, this spell targeted souls exclusively. It had no effect on anything else. Reluctant to linger, Voldemort planned to retreat. This young wizard's power far exceeded his expectations, and he couldn't sustain prolonged resistance using Quirrell's body. Moreover, he now recognized this wizard. Xiaji was the very individual he sought to recruit. Voldemort spat out a burst of orange flame. It morphed into a serpentine flame creature that lunged at Xiaji before vanishing. He knew Xiaji, having studied his notes, would undoubtedly resist fiend fire. Xiaji waved his wand. A ghostly blue flame erupted, taking the form of a phoenix that charged at the fiery serpent. Boom! The two flames collided in a cataclysmic explosion. Xiaji persistently commanded his fiend-fire phoenix to clash repeatedly against the serpent. The spectacle was breathtakingly magnificent. He figured such commotion would surely draw Professor Dumbledore's attention. Eventually, the serpent's assault was halted by the fiend-fire phoenix. Finite incantum. Xiaji thrust his wand to the ground. The two flames struggled violently under his spell's control, yet ultimately faded away under the power of finite incantatum. This complex spell, requiring multiple wizards to execute, Xiaji now wielded single-handedly. Once both flames vanished, he noticed Voldemort had vanished without a trace. The area had been completely incinerated by the flames. Fortunately, Hagrid had heeded his orders and retreated. Otherwise, he'd have perished here. Distant voices soon emerged. Hagrid had apparently summoned reinforcements. Xiaji groaned internally. The scale of this incident made explanation nearly impossible, and explanations were such a hassle. If I can't explain it, then I won't, he resolved. Spotting Professor Dumbledore rushing over, he promptly feigned unconsciousness. I've fainted. Hagrid followed Dumbledore back to the scene, only to witness Xiaji collapsing lifelessly, pale and utterly drained. Hagrid wailed in despair. He believed Xiaji was dead. After all, Xiaji had single-handedly resisted a wizard of immense power. How could he possibly be unharmed? Overwhelmed by guilt, Hagrid thought he'd caused Xiaji's demise. Dumbledore approached solemnly, examining Xiaji briefly before his brow relaxed. Xiaji had performed admirably. He'd channeled most of his magical energy into his Obscurus, making him appear utterly magically depleted. The rest was now Hagrid's responsibility to explain. Since Hagrid hadn't witnessed the fiendfire, it'd make perfect sense for him to claim Xiaji had merely used finite incantatum before collapsing from exhaustion. Even with an Obscurus's energy reserves, casting finite incantatum alone was grueling. Dumbledore, unsurprisingly, harbored no suspicions. He'd always believed Xiaji's immense power derived from his Obscurus. Very well, Hagrid, Xiaji merely collapsed from exhaustion. Please carry him to the infirmary. Dumbledore turned toward the forest depths, intent on searching for traces of the Dark Wizard. Hagrid, overjoyed at hearing Xiaji was alive, hurriedly lifted him onto his shoulders. Neither noticed a faint white shadow slipping unnoticed into Xiaji's right hand. Naturally, Dumbledore found no clues. The fiendfire had erased all evidence, making it impossible to discern two flames had ever clashed. Gradually, more professors arrived, drawn by the commotion. Spotting Xiaji cradled by Hagrid, his limp, lifeless hand, Professor McGonagall assumed the worst. Oh, I shouldn't have punished him with forced confinement. She clutched her chest, anguished. Professor McGonagall, Xiaji merely collapsed from exhaustion. I'm rushing him to the infirmary, Hagrid hurriedly clarified. Chapter 75. Voldemort. I'll save Xiaji from Dumbledore's grasp. Quirrell was currently curled up in agony on the floor of his office. Voldemort and Xiaji had fought a battle, using Quirrell's body as their vessel. Even after drinking unicorn blood, Quirrell still suffered immensely from the sheer depletion of his life force. That boy. I must draw him to my side. Why yes, my lord. Quirrell's voice trembled. He's concealing his own use of dark magic, just like I used to. Yes, just like me, forced to submit under Dumbledore's oppression. We're the same kind of person. He'll definitely join my ranks. Oh, it was terrifying. At that moment, the killing curse came within mere inches of my face. Had Siaji not shoved me aside, I'd have died then and there. Hagrid still shuddered at the memory. Inside the headmaster's office, all the professors had gathered to listen as Hagrid recounted what had happened that night. Once he finished, the room fell dead silent. After a long pause, Dumbledore spoke up. Severus, someone is attempting to prolong their life using unicorn blood. His gaze towards Snape carried deep meaning. Snape gave a slight nod before stepping out of the office. Very well. Everyone may now return to their dorms. I'll handle tonight's events appropriately. Hagrid, please calm the centaurs down for me, all right? Dumbledore spoke with unwavering composure. Siaji lay on the infirmary bed, initially merely pretending to be unconscious. But eventually, he drifted into actual sleep. He found himself dreaming. He stood upon an endless grassland, and beside him, a pure white unicorn lowered its head, gently licking his hand. Siaji couldn't resist reaching out to touch the creature, but the instant his hand brushed its neck, he jolted awake. Opening his eyes, he was surprised to see several people standing before him: Cassandra Vole, Hermione, Harry, and Ron. Upon seeing him awaken, all of them exhaled in relief. Hey, I just collapsed from exhaustion. I wasn't on the verge of death or anything. That doesn't count as not on the verge of death. That was fiend fire. Cassandra's eyes reddened slightly. How do you keep getting involved in such things? Who knows? Siaji replied helplessly. He certainly hadn't wanted this to happen. All he'd intended was to take a stroll through the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid, only to end up encountering Voldemort himself. Truthfully, he hadn't suffered any injuries. He'd only faked unconsciousness to avoid the hassle of explaining things. Ron couldn't help but exclaim, "That was so cool, man. That was pure dark magic. Heard you handled it all, with just one spell. If only I'd gone to the professor earlier, I'd have requested that Siaji detention be moved from the Forbidden Forest to inside the castle," Hermione sighed. "I'd warned you how dangerous the forest is, yet you still refused to listen. Are you feeling all right now?" Harry asked. He noticed Siaji's pale complexion. It rivaled even Quirrell's, which was quite alarming. "I'm fine. That dark wizard wasn't all that formidable. I almost caught him myself." Eventually, Madame Pomfrey sent everyone else away. Siaji had to stay overnight in the infirmary. In reality, he was perfectly fine. Barring any complications, he'd be back on his feet by morning.
Ding.
Congratulations, host, on acquiring a new talent. Unicorn's Shadow. The system chimed at just the right moment. What exactly is Unicorn Shadow? Siaji asked curiously.
Ding.
With this talent, the host can summon a spectral spirit of a unicorn to attack enemies. A summon creature? How did I earn this reward?
Ding.
This isn't a system-awarded talent. Upon analysis, it appears a deceased unicorn bestowed this ability upon you as a blessing, allowing you to summon its spectral form. It wishes for you to avenge it.
Ding.
Current assessment indicates that the summoned unicorn's shadow currently possesses only half its full power. Only by avenging the unicorn and fulfilling its final wish will you gain access to the talent's complete potential. Siaji recalled the unicorn from his dream. Very well. I promise to avenge you. Since it was Quirrell who'd kill this unicorn, Siaji would consider his promise fulfilled if he either killed Quirrell or caused Quirrell's death. At that moment, he seemed to hear a soft whinny, distinctly belonging to a unicorn. If a unicorn's shadow combined with soul magic, wouldn't that essentially grant the spell automatic tracking capabilities? A faint smile tugged at Siaji's lips. Please grant me flowers. On the eve of Halloween, Siaji awoke to the sweet scent of roasting pumpkins. Meanwhile, Professor Flitwick finally allowed first years to attempt the floating charm. Siaji and Cassandra had long since mastered it, and Harry and Hermione, having trained under him, also effortlessly levitated feathers into the air. Delighted, Professor Flitwick awarded Gryffindor an extra 20 points. Of course, just as in the original story, Ron failed utterly. Later, he even spoke ill of Hermione, words that were overheard. Heartbroken, Hermione fled crying, skipping the rest of her classes. Xiaji understood this all too well. Though Hermione's personality had softened considerably, conflict still arose, largely due to Ron. Within the Weasley household, Ron was the one most easily overlooked. He used his brother's old wands, wore their hand-me-down robes, and even kept a mouse discarded by his siblings as a pet. All these factors combined to forge a deeply insecure character. Such insecurity bred jealousy, and it was easy for him to lash out at anyone who triggered his sensitivities, in this case Hermione, who'd been paired with him for spell work. Others might have escaped unscathed, but Hermione constantly sought to instruct others. Though her arrogance had faded, it still ignited Ron's volatile temper. Seeing Hermione storm off in tears, Xiaji grabbed Harry's arm. "Harry, remember this. Tonight, don't hold back. I give you full permission to wield those powerful spells." "Huh? What do you mean?" Harry stared at him, baffled. "Are you implying I'll be fighting something tonight?" Xiaji didn't answer. He gazed skyward briefly. "The stars tonight are unusually bright." Harry glanced up as well. But it's daytime now. By the time he turned back, Xiaji had vanished. Naturally, Xiaji knew Quirrell would unleash a troll that night, trapping Hermione in the girls' lavatory. Yet he made no move to prevent it. He'd trained Harry long enough. Now was the time for a proper test. He wanted both Hermione and Harry to wield their wands bravely when facing the beast, rather than one cowering in fear and the other recklessly jabbing the troll's nostrils with magic. Chapter 76. Snape is shocked. Dumbledore, you're playing with fiend fire. The Great Hall was adorned with vibrant decorations. Countless Halloween-themed ornaments filled every corner of the hall. Xiaji felt a sense of discomfort at the sight of countless fake bats flapping their wings on the walls and ceiling, even though he knew they were merely illusions. Mountains of delicious food suddenly appeared on the long tables, and everyone immediately dove into eating with gusto. Gazing at all those delicacies, Xiaji thought to himself that it was high time he paid a visit to the kitchens to figure out how those potatoes with skins ended up there. A troll. In the dungeon classroom. "I figured you'd already be aware of this," Quirrell shouted as he rushed in, only to collapse unconscious right in front of Professor Dumbledore. Panic ensued. Everyone scattered in fright. Professor Dumbledore swiftly calmed the crowd and instructed the prefects to escort all students back to their respective common rooms. Only then did Harry and Ron recall Hermione. They resolved to go inform her of the situation. Just then, Harry remembered what Xiaji had told him earlier that day. 997. In other words, tonight, he might have to face a troll. Surprisingly, his first reaction wasn't fear. Instead, he felt an exhilarating surge of adrenaline. Watching Harry and Ron quietly slip away from the group, Xiaji chuckled. He took Cassandra Vol's hand and asked, "Care to join me in checking out this troll?" Boom! A 12-foot-tall monstrosity swung a massive wooden club, reducing the girls' lavatory to utter ruins. Ron stood frozen in awe as he watched Harry and Hermione waving their wands, casting spells of immense power he'd never witnessed before. Petrificus totalis. Confringo. Run. Harry realized his spells, though potent, barely scratched the troll's thick, stone-like hide. They merely angered it further. They fought while retreating, but despite its bulk, the troll advanced at astonishing speed. Ron felt bitter watching Harry and Hermione struggle valiantly while he remained utterly useless. The troll lunged forward, club swinging wide. The trio dove to dodge the blow. Yet Harry's wand flew from his grasp, and Hermione alone stood no chance against such a foe. Backing away frantically, they gazed at the slow, relentless advance of the troll, despair setting in. There was no escaping its next strike. Hermione trembled uncontrollably. Fear, long suppressed during battle, now crept back in. She retreated step by step, eyes wide with terror. Suddenly, she felt a gentle hand press against her back. "Don't be afraid. "You've done wonderfully," a soothing voice murmured, bringing comfort akin to a warm breeze. They turned and beheld Xiaji and Cassandra. Noticing two more small fry nearby, the troll roared defiantly and charged. Cassandra stepped forward. A brilliant bolt of lightning erupted from her wand, striking the beast dead on. The troll staggered back, scorched and stunned. Yet its rage only intensified. It charged anew. Xiaji advanced calmly, wand raised. The ground cracked open, and 3 stone giants, each matching the troll's size, emerged. Silent and ferocious, they pounced on the beast. One blow from the troll's club shattered its stone skull, yet it kept coming, relentless. Despite its strength, the troll was swiftly pinned beneath all 3 stone giants, unable to rise. Xiaji twirled his wand with effortless grace, as if conducting an orchestra. Shards of stone lifted into the air, twisting into shimmering silver blades. Whoosh! Countless blades pierced the troll's body. It thrashed in agony, roaring, until multiple blades pierced its skull, silencing it for good. Harry and the others stood speechless. The battle had been so elegant. Xiaji emerged unscathed, while they'd emerged battered and filthy after their own grueling struggle. Xiaji lowered his wand as hurried footsteps approached. The commotion had drawn attention from below. Professor McGonagall appeared first, followed by Snape and Quirrell. Pale-faced, Quirrell glanced at the blade-riddled corpse, then at Xiaji. He'd nearly met the same fate in the Forbidden Forest. Collapsing to the floor, he wept weakly, paralyzed by fear. Fear of Xiaji, and fear of his master's punishment for failing. Snape stared at the impaled troll, then at Xiaji, with deep suspicion. Who else could achieve such feats? Shock filled Snape's eyes. Xiaji excelled not only in dark magic, but also in transfiguration. As he grew older, who could possibly challenge him? Should he ever stray from the right path, the entire world would tremble beneath his might. Professor Dumbledore, you're playing with fire. What mischief are you all up to? Why aren't you safely in your dormitories? McGonagall demanded. Professor, they were looking for me, Hermione interjected timidly, eager to take blame. Actually, Hermione had been in the lavatory and missed the troll alert. Harry and Ron set out to inform her, but encountered the troll en route. They had no time to summon help. Xiaji interrupted. I saw them slip away and feared for their safety, so I followed. Professor, you know me, I can handle trolls just fine. He shrugged. McGonagall turned to Cassandra, who mirrored Xiaji's gesture. Professor, you know me, I follow him wherever he goes. McGonagall fell silent. She gazed at the troll, clearly defeated by transfiguration, and felt both irritation and quiet pride. Very well. Each of you earns 5 points for Gryffindor. Few first years could face an adult troll so bravely. I'll inform Professor Dumbledore. Now, if unharmed, return to Gryffindor Tower. Your peers await you for the Halloween feast. Before Snape could react, McGonagall swiftly awarded points and dismissed them, wary of further deductions. Snape remained lost in worry, oblivious to her maneuvers. He resolved to speak urgently with Professor Dumbledore. Chapter 77. Voldemort. I'm done pretending. I'm laying everything out. Nothing could possibly strengthen bonds between people more than fighting a 3-headed dog together. After this experience, Harry and his friends truly became inseparable. Hermione, too, no longer constantly brought up school rules as she used to. Harry had also been training more frequently at Quidditch lately, as his very first match was fast approaching. Meanwhile, the rest of Gryffindor students were also preparing for the upcoming game. Xiaji and Cassandra Vole helped Ron cast a spell on his bedsheet, conjuring a majestic, moving lion pattern onto it. While they were at it, Harry noticed that Snape had sustained a leg injury from the 3-headed dog's bite. Naturally, Harry immediately suspected Snape of being the one attempting to steal the Philosopher's Stone. Truly, Snape lived up to his reputation as Hogwarts' ultimate scapegoat. No matter what misdeed occurred, Harry always suspected him first. That day, following a defense against the dark arts lesson, Quirrell asked Xiaji to stay behind once more. Ever since Halloween night, Quirrell had summoned him a total of 9 times, each time handing him a new spellbook. Strictly following his master's orders, Quirrell gradually passed these books to Xiaji, aiming to draw this naturally gifted dark wizard back into the path of darkness. Initially, Xiaji paid these spellbooks little mind. Yet recently, he noticed that the new ones Quirrell provided were growing increasingly complex. At least now, their contents finally piqued his interest enough to warrant reading. Still, Xiaji made no outward display of disinterest. Each time he received a new book, he always wore an expression of pure delight. Quirrell interpreted this as clear evidence that Xiaji was gradually becoming enchanted by the power of dark magic. Upon entering Quirrell's office, Xiaji immediately acted impatient. "Professor, are you giving me another spellbook today?" Witnessing his eagerness, Quirrell inwardly rejoiced. It seemed he'd soon fulfill his master's task. "Xiaji, after reading so many books, what do you think of the spells they contain?" Quirrell cautiously inquired. "Powerful. Extremely powerful. Yet, Professor Dumbledore would never allow me to use them." Xiaji's voice softened. "In Albania, I used such magic to slaughter those werewolves tormenting me. The sheer ecstasy of it." Raising his trembling hand, Xiaji seemed to relive the bliss of wielding dark magic. "But upon returning, Professor Dumbledore forbade me from ever using such magic again. I refused to be sent back to the Wolves' orphanage as a monster." Quirrell smiled warmly. "I understand completely. Yearning for great power is nothing to be ashamed of. By the way, you mentioned using dark magic in Albania? If you don't mind, where did you learn it?" Suddenly, Xiaji's body trembled violently, as if recalling some horrifying memory. "I learned it from those werewolves. They tested all these spells on me," he murmured, head bowed. "After escaping, I realized I'd somehow mastered every single dark spell they'd used on me. Their final lesson was the killing curse. They'd intended to kill me using it." Quirrell was utterly astounded. This boy was a natural genius at dark magic, capable of mastering it merely through observation. He'd personally witnessed Xiaji's fiendfire spell. "I've always been fascinated by dark magic, yet since returning, I've had no chance to practice it, until you began giving me these spellbooks." Xiaji feigned excitement and gratitude. Quirrell assumed this emotional outburst explained why Xiaji had revealed so much. He saw no need to doubt him. After all, no matter how gifted, Xiaji remained just a child, incapable of any real cunning. Of course, Xiaji knew full well that Voldemort aimed to lure him into darkness and recruit him as a Death Eater. And eventually, Voldemort himself would appear to persuade him. Xiaji wanted nothing more than that. Thus, he crafted an image of someone deeply drawn to dark magic and power, yet reluctantly submissive due to Dumbledore's control, a narrative mirroring Tom Riddle's own struggles under Dumbledore's watchful eye. This would undoubtedly earn him Voldemort's empathy. Both would see themselves as kindred spirits. Xiaji now confirmed that Voldemort still resided within Quirrell. His fiendfire hadn't altered that fact. The fact that the Marauder's map failed to register Tom further supported this conclusion. Suddenly, Xiaji asked curiously, "But Professor, why share all this knowledge with me? Even Professor Dumbledore treats dark magic with extreme caution." Quirrell stammered, I show you these because I know you're exceptional. You'll undoubtedly need them someday. Even if not for personal use, at least to guard against them." "I see." Xiaji eyed him skeptically. Quirrell knew Xiaji saw through him. His actions were purely driven by his master's orders, making him appear overly eager. Yet before Quirrell could shift the topic, a hoarse, deep voice rang out from behind him. "Enough, Quirrell. Further testing is unnecessary." Xiaji froze in shock. He'd known Voldemort would eventually appear, but not so soon. He'd expected it only after Christmas. It turned out that Xiaji's experiences closely mirrored Voldemort's own, cementing Voldemort's belief that Xiaji was one of them, destined to seek ultimate power and follow him. Thus, he'd hasten the process, unable to wait any longer. "Who's speaking?" Xiaji feigned terror. "Master, how can this be? I shall speak to him myself." Quirrell reluctantly removed his turban before Xiaoji, revealing a grotesque face atop his skull. Xiaoji, this isn't our first meeting, the twisted face grinned. Xiaoji thought it'd be wiser not to smile. Drawing his wand, he demanded, "Who are you?" Quirrell spoke fluently now. "This is my master, the greatest Dark Lord in the world." Chapter 78. Professor, I'm reporting this. Voldemort is on the back of Quirrell's head. Are you Voldemort? Weren't you dead? Xiaoji gripped his wand tightly, as though he were about to unleash a killing curse at any moment. Relax, my boy, Voldemort replied with a twitching smile. Since I've appeared before you now, I have no intention of fighting you. What do you mean this isn't our first meeting? Our first meeting was at Gringotts. I experienced the power of your fiend fire then. Do you still remember it? Voldemort's voice was hoarse. So that was you? And the one in the Forbidden Forest that night, that was also you?
Exactly.
That was me as well. Voldemort began trying to tempt Xiaoji. That night, when we fought, I realized you seemed to be desperately suppressing yourself, trying not to use any dark magic. Professor Dumbledore. Precisely. That old fool Dumbledore would never allow you to wield dark magic.
What do you mean by that?
Xiaoji, join me. What good does it do for you to stand by Dumbledore's side? What can he possibly teach you? He only hinders your ability to obtain the power of dark magic you crave so much. Voldemort's tone grew, increasingly excited. Back when I was at school, it was the same. He always got in my way. I understand that feeling all too well. So, join me, Xiaoji. Under my guidance, you'll be able to learn far more powerful dark magic, and I certainly won't forbid you from using it. Xiaoji remained silent, but his wand gradually lowered. Rumors say you're Professor Dumbledore's personal protege, right? But he can't teach you the power you truly desire. If you wish it, I'll even take you as my own student. I'll impart all my abilities to you. I've created many immensely powerful spells known only to me, none of which are recorded in any forbidden books in the library. Deep down, Xiaoji scoffed at this, yet on the surface, he displayed an expression of intrigue. But in your current state, how exactly can you make a comeback? Of course I have a way. That's precisely why I've come here. Once I regain my strength, Dumbledore won't stand a chance against me. Then, together, we'll crush the entire world beneath our feet. Professor Quirrell listened in astonishment. He'd never seen the Dark Lord show such interest in anyone before. Under normal circumstances, Voldemort would have simply blasted that person with an Avada Kedavra. There'd be no need for all this talking. How can I trust you, though? I may have lost my power, but my magical knowledge remains intact. If you agree to join me and follow me, I can teach you right now one spell I invented all on my own. Quirrell, who'd been listening silently, was utterly bewildered. Why did his master place such importance on this kid? The reason was simple. Xiaoji possessed immense potential. Voldemort sought to recruit him precisely because he recognized that potential. Should someone like Xiaoji remain loyal to Dumbledore, he'd become a massive threat to Voldemort. But if this incredibly talented young wizard could be won over, the situation would change completely. Not only would Voldemort no longer have to worry about gaining a powerful rival, he'd gain a powerful ally as well. Moreover, looking at Xiaoji, Voldemort saw a second version of himself, a young wizard desperate for power. Such a person would be easiest to control and tempt. All it took was revealing the sheer breadth of his magical knowledge, and Xiaoji would inevitably submit.
Very well.
My Lord Voldemort, what must I do for you? Having made up his mind, Xiaoji tucked his wand away. Excellent. Absolutely excellent. Voldemort was delighted. Though Xiaoji didn't address him as master, Voldemort understood. Someone with such talent naturally possessed immense pride. Just like Voldemort himself in his youth, had Xiaoji immediately called him master, Voldemort would have grown suspicious instead. I came to Hogwarts specifically for the item you retrieved at Gringotts. Dumbledore certainly hasn't told you what it is. He'd never trust someone like us. He sent you to fetch it merely to test you. Suddenly, Xiaoji sensed faint magical energy probing into his mind. Well, Voldemort outwardly trusted him, yet still used legilimency. His method, though, was far cruder than Dumbledore's. There was absolutely no attempt at concealment. Clearly, Voldemort assumed that a mere first-year student like Xiaji wouldn't even notice such probing. Fortunately, Xiaji always maintained his eclumpsy at maximum level, so Voldemort couldn't extract any meaningful information. In fact, Voldemort's legilimency only reinforced his belief that Xiaji truly intended to follow him. Sure enough, now free of any doubts, Voldemort began discussing the Philosopher's Stone with him. Voldemort also mentioned the various obstacles Dumbledore had set up. The obstacles placed by others aren't much of a problem, but that stupid giant's dog is a real nuisance. Quirrell, you fool, you've been utterly unable to get past it. The giant? Do you mean Hagrid? Yes, him. Even back in school, he loved messing around with all sorts of filthy beasts. My Lord Voldemort, if it's Hagrid, I might actually have a way. From what I know, he's always been a chatterbox. He's prone to spilling secrets. You have a way? Voldemort was pleasantly surprised. Quirrell, that idiot, had tried countless times yet still failed against Fluffy. Now here was Xiaji claiming he had a solution? Hagrid adores large, ferocious beasts. Exactly. That fool's always been like that since childhood. I've heard he's always wanted to raise a dragon. So, if we manage to obtain a dragon egg and offer it as a bribe, we'll surely get him to reveal Fluffy's weak points. Excellent. Absolutely excellent. Voldemort was ecstatic. Come here, my boy. I've got a spell of my own creation. I'll teach it to you right now. After leaving Quirrell's office, Xiaji gazed happily at his spell list, now featuring a brand new enchantment. Voldemort's modified version of the Wingardium Leviosa. This spell allowed one to transform into black mist and fly, even granting protection from magical attacks, similar in function to his own Hound's Step, though his own spell couldn't actually grant flight. Though Xiaji, possessing an Obscurus, didn't strictly need the spell, he could certainly teach it to others. He wondered what Voldemort's expression would be upon discovering every member of the DA wielding this very same spell. Of course, Xiaji had no intention of siding with Voldemort. His original goal had been to report Quirrell. He'd simply lacked evidence until now. At first glance at the Marauder's map, he hadn't known whether Voldemort still resided within Quirrell's skull. Only after the Forbidden Forest incident did he confirm it. Initially, he'd planned to prepare thoroughly, then reveal his own prophetic abilities to Dumbledore as a means of tipping him off. That was why he'd previously hinted at possessing such abilities. But now that Quirrell had willingly handed him opportunities, Xiaji saw no rush. In fact, he'd even gained numerous benefits from Voldemort. Those spell notes meant little to Xiaji personally, but they'd be invaluable for others to study. Without pause, Xiaji ascended straight to the 8th floor. Ice-cold lemon juice. Inside the headmaster's office, Professor Dumbledore smiled warmly at Xiaji's sudden arrival. What is it, Xiaji? What brings you here? Professor, I have a report to make. Voldemort is currently inhabiting the back of Professor Quirrell's skull. Chapter 79. Snape. Xiaji absolutely cannot be trusted. Dumbledore was savoring his favorite lemon drops. Upon hearing Xiaji's words, he immediately stopped. He wondered if he'd grown too old and misheard everything. Xiaji, what did you say? Could you repeat that? Professor, I'm reporting that Voldemort is currently on the back of Quirrell's head. This time, Dumbledore confirmed he hadn't misheard at all. He swiftly stood up, seemingly intent on rushing out the door, but abruptly halted. Turning toward one of the portraits on the wall, he spoke. Phineas, could you call Severus for me? The white-bearded old man in the portrait, who had initially been stunned, instantly vanished from his frame. Dumbledore returned to his seat, his expression grave. Tell me, how did you manage to notice this? Did Voldemort detect you at all? Dumbledore assumed Xiaji had stumbled upon this by accident. If Voldemort realized he'd been spied upon, he'd surely sense his cover was blown, and might very well act recklessly within the school. That was the very outcome Dumbledore wanted to prevent at all costs. In truth, Quirrell stood right in front of me, removed his turban, and revealed that face on the back of his head. Xiaozhi replied, his face pale. That face claimed to be Voldemort. He wanted me to join him. Professor, I'm sorry, but I had no idea what consequences might arise if I acted on impulse, so I chose not to strike. Instead I opted for option 997 to join him, Xiaozhi continued. Of course, that was merely an act. I only did it to escape safely. Dumbledore exhaled in relief. Thank goodness you didn't act recklessly, Xiaozhi. You stand no chance against Voldemort, even now that he's undoubtedly weakened. You made the right choice. He paused briefly, then added, Also, I must thank you, Xiaozhi. Thank you for not truly joining him and instead coming straight to me afterward. His eyes brimmed with heartfelt gratitude. He truly didn't want another student of his to go astray. If I were you, I wouldn't trust a single word he says, Dumbledore. Snape had arrived, his hollow eyes fixed on Xiaozhi warily. How could you possibly deceive the Dark Lord right under his nose? You're lying. You mean legilimency, right? Upon learning of such magic, I promptly studied occlumency. No one wants their thoughts freely browsed by others, Xiaozhi replied calmly. Speaking of mastering such advanced magic sounded as easy as eating a meal to him. Is that so? Then tell me, why would the Dark Lord risk exposing himself just to recruit you? Snape spoke deliberately, his eyes flashing dangerously, as though ready to cast Sectum Sempra on Xiaozhi at the slightest wrong answer. Because I've faced him multiple times, and during those battles, I had no choice but to wield some dark magic. Hence, he claimed we resembled each other. He believed I'd join him to further my studies in dark arts. Do you really deny craving ultimate power? I highly doubt that. Just because I seek power, does that mean I must join him? Professor Dumbledore is the greatest wizard of this century. I can learn plenty from him, too. Why must I join Voldemort? Xiaozhi spoke heatedly. I'm nothing like Voldemort. I've got friends. People I care about. How dare you assume I'd abandon them all to chase some dying dark wizard's twisted experiments? To me, those people matter 10,000 times more than any dark magic or ultimate power. Snape's face turned deathly pale, as though struck by 10,000 emotional blows. Had he held similar convictions back then, giving up dark magic and those friends for Lily's sake? Would she still be alive today? Would she be with him now? His lips trembled. No words came forth. Enough, Severus. If Xiaozhi truly defected to Voldemort, he'd have no reason to seek me out. Professor Dumbledore, we must alert the Aurors at once. Together, we can surely vanquish Voldemort for good. Dumbledore sighed. That's precisely what troubles me. He wields a vile spell. Until we break it, we can't truly kill him. Xiaozhi understood. Dumbledore referred to Voldemort's Horcruxes. Dumbledore knew of their existence long ago, though he'd never known exactly how many Voldemort had crafted. Truthfully, I'd long suspected Quirrell was compromised, especially since his return from the forests of Albania. That's why I'd kept Severus monitoring him. Professor, so you knew all along that Voldemort clung to Quirrell's skull? No, I only learned this today. Initially, I assumed Quirrell merely served as his pawn, unaware Voldemort himself had followed him to Hogwarts. What do we do now? We can't let him remain in the school. Besides, I promised to join them. What if Voldemort orders me to do something? Exactly. We can't allow Voldemort to stay here. Though we can't destroy him outright, we can at least slow his recovery. Dumbledore rose, now holding a uniquely shaped wand. Xiaozhi recognized it at once, the fabled Elder Wand. Dumbledore intended to strike decisively. Xiaozhi himself was somewhat surprised. He'd assumed Dumbledore already knew Voldemort lurked on Quirrell's head. Yet now it seemed Dumbledore truly had known. Only upon learning Voldemort infiltrated the school did he resolve to act. Evidently, Dumbledore never tolerated Voldemort's presence here. Professor, Voldemort told me he infiltrated the school solely to obtain the Philosopher's Stone and resurrect himself. He claimed clearing all obstacles save Hagrid's dog posed no challenge. Curiously, Xiaozhi asked next. Yet, Professor, keeping the stone on your person seemed safest. Why set up all those trials, placing it at the very end? Wouldn't that grant Voldemort an easy chance? Once he defeated Hagrid's dog, the stone practically fell into his hands. Dumbledore sighed. That was actually a trap I devised for Quirrell. We only suspected him of wrongdoing, but lacked proof. Should he reach the stone's chamber, his guilt would have been undeniable. Moreover, the stone there was a fake. Even so, acquiring it wouldn't have been easy. I'd rig the final chamber with a little trick. Xiaji mused inwardly. Truly befitting a headmaster, his schemes ran deep. So, the stone Harry retrieved in canon was also a fake. Dumbledore simply never told him. Otherwise, Harry'd have suffered deeply learning the stone he risked his life for was merely a replica.
Enough.
We must capture Quirrell at once. Dumbledore stood. Xiaji rose too. He adored joining battles mid-fight, especially when the enemy was already reeling.
Ding.
System detects Voldemort attempting to recruit host. Assigning mission now. Chapter 80. They can all be sacrificed. Why can't I? Xiaji, lips twitched slightly. That notification came at a rather inopportune moment. I was already getting ready to fight, so what on earth was that system trying to achieve?
Ding.
Please persuade Professor Dumbledore to allow you to join Voldemort's ranks as a spy, thereby earning his trust. Absolutely not. Xiaji rejected it outright. Why would I have nothing better to do than go spy for Voldemort? Shouldn't this kind of job be left to Professor Snape, who's got deep-seated grudges against him? It wasn't that he saw this task as particularly dangerous. Even at his peak, Voldemort posed no real threat to Xiaji now. The problem was that Voldemort never trusted anyone at all. Thus, this mission was practically impossible to accomplish.
Ding.
All you need to do is earn from Voldemort a level of trust comparable to what Snape has earned. No way. Xiaji refused once again. This task was far too troublesome and mentally taxing. Right now, all he wanted was to relax, to spend his days teasing Cassandra Vole and flirting with Hermione. Wasn't that far more enjoyable?
Ding.
Mission accomplished. Reward, druidic talents and a fire phoenix. Xiaji, eyes instantly lit up.
Ding.
With druidic talents, you'll become a favorite of nature itself. All animals and magical creatures will feel drawn to you.
Ding.
Upon completing this mission, you'll gain the approval of a fire phoenix and form a pact with her. She'll be passed down through generations within your family. Xiaji drew in a sharp breath. These rewards, they were simply insane. The druidic talents didn't particularly excite him. But a phoenix. He'd earn the favor of a phoenix, one that could be inherited through his bloodline. All he had to do was gain Voldemort's trust to the same extent Snape had. That was entirely doable. And there wouldn't be any 3 years, then another 3 nonsense involved. Though Xiaji had debated this with the system in his mind for quite a while, in reality, it only took a few seconds. Professor, Xiaji suddenly called out to Dumbledore, who was about to leave. What is it? We must expel Voldemort from the school at once, Dumbledore replied. He used the word expel because, due to the Horcruxes, he couldn't kill Voldemort's fragmented soul nor capture him. You mentioned earlier that as long as that evil magic remains unresolved, Voldemort can never truly be killed, correct? Indeed, and right now I have no idea how to counter it. Then, allow me to give it a try. Xiaji raised his head, determination flashing in his eyes. What do you intend to do? I want to join Voldemort's side, Xiaji declared firmly. Only by truly becoming part of his ranks will I have any chance of discovering how to dismantle that evil magic. Of course, his actual goal was merely to earn Voldemort's trust. He already knew all about the Horcruxes. This was also a perfect opportunity to leak crucial intelligence about them to Dumbledore, ensuring Voldemort's downfall. The fact that Harry had unexpectedly become a Horcrux complicated matters slightly, but that too could be resolved somehow. The moment Xiaji finished speaking, complete silence fell over the headmaster's office. Both Dumbledore and Snape stared at him intently. Absolutely not. This is far too dangerous. Dumbledore snapped back to himself and immediately refused. You're only in your first year. There's no justification for attempting such an impossible task. Impossible? I don't see why. Xiaji pressed on. Precisely because I'm just a first-year student, Voldemort won't suspect me so easily. Who would ever believe that an 11-year-old wizard would dare spy on the Dark Lord himself?
No.
It's out of the question. If anything were to happen to you, I'm an orphan, Professor, so even if I were to die. No, Xiaji, you're not alone. Think of your friends, your teachers. Professor, it's precisely because I think of them that I must do this. If Voldemort returns, no one will be safe. Everyone will be dragged into this storm. I refuse to let them face such danger. Xiaji continued, I've heard that countless people sacrificed their lives fighting against Voldemort back in the day. It was their sacrifices that secured this fleeting peace we enjoy now. If they could give their lives, why shouldn't I? Upon hearing this, Dumbledore was deeply moved. They could sacrifice themselves, so why can't I? Those words struck him like a hammer to the heart. I actually think this is a solid plan. Dumbledore, since when did your heart grow so soft? Snape turned towards Xiaji. I have no idea what schemes you're plotting, but if the Dark Lord sees through your mind, you'll be walking straight into death. That's why you'll use the Levi Corpus spell on me. If you can resist my legitimacy, then I'll be allowed to proceed. Very well. Xiaji calmly met Snape's gaze. Snape raised his wand and pointed it at him. Legitimacy. Instantly, a series of images flooded Snape's mind, and his face turned pale. They all depicted a cross-dressed Snape dancing. The images were downright cringeworthy. Snape hastily broke off the legitimacy, retreating in utter embarrassment. He glared fiercely at Xiaji, gripping his wand so tightly he seemed ready to carve him open with a killing curse. Yet there was no doubt, Xiaji had passed. So, may I proceed with this mission? I'd love to refuse you, my boy. But your reasoning has convinced me. Dumbledore's expression was heavy with sorrow. Your request is truly cruel for an old man like me to accept. Still, I must make this decision. I grant your request, Xiaji. Xiaji knew Dumbledore would agree. After all, upon learning that Harry himself was a Horcrux, Dumbledore had immediately devised a plan to send Harry to his death. True, Harry wouldn't actually perish in that plan, but even the slightest miscalculation could still cost him his life. It was an incredibly risky maneuver. Xiaji wondered whether Dumbledore had felt the same emotions back then. Dumbledore always prioritized the bigger picture. When necessary, he even arranged his own death. Thus, so long as his reasoning was sound, he'd undoubtedly succeed in persuading him. Xiaji took out a silver ring and handed it to Dumbledore. This was originally meant as a little trinket for my friends. Wear it if it heats up. It means I'm trying to contact you. Simply press it against a piece of parchment, and it'll display whatever message I wish to send. Conversely, if you stroke the ring while thinking of my name and the message you want to convey, my ring will receive it as well. Excellent. This will help ensure your safety. I'll also be able to locate you through it. Dumbledore examined the ring carefully. So, what's your next step? Snape interjected coldly. First, I must earn Voldemort's preliminary trust. But for that, I'll need your help.